What's up, everybody? Paul Hickey here with NoOffSeason.com. Welcome to the Sports Card Strategy Show. I've got my main man, Kendall Lefty, the Catalytic McKee, joining me as always. I don't know where I would be without my co-host, Kendall McKee. We're on episode 33, believe it or not.
Wow.
Sports Card Strategy Show. So we had 32 last week, and in honor of number 32, I just real quick want to talk about something that I haven't talked about in a while, and that's going to lead us into our first topic, which is basketball. And Kendall, I didn't prep you for this, but you should not be surprised that this NBA TopShot.
I knew this was coming.
Urban Magic.
As soon as you said 32, I was like, here comes Magic again.
And 33 at Michigan State. So we're in episode 33, and I don't care about Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
So these are our Magic episodes, huh?
Yeah, you didn't know it's actually going to be a Magic episode. So that whole pre-show agenda that we just ran through before we started airing the show is just going down the crap. We're only going to talk about Urban Magic Johnson today. Everybody,
we're actually just going to watch the documentary together live.
Yeah, let's actually. Here we go. They call me Magic. I'm going to bring it up right now. And then we're going to watch all 10 episodes of Winning Time. So everybody, I kid. Stay with us. Don't turn the podcast off. I'm totally kidding. But I did actually, for real, I said to a friend of mine, a good buddy of mine who actually lives across the balcony from me. He's from Ireland, and he's a big NBA fan, believe it or not. And so I said he was buying a lot of TopShot last year, as probably we all were, unfortunately. And I got a couple moments. I got a couple packs. I didn't put that much money into it, but I'm a huge NBA fan, so I had to partake and see what it was all about. I'm not like an investor in TopShot. But I said to him, I was like, Mark, what the NBA TopShot really needs to do, what Dapper and Adam Silver need to get together and do, is they need to go back and they need to get the classic moments. Because nobody cares, I'm sorry, but nobody cares about an Alex Caruso steal from 2020.
I care.
I knew that was coming.
Alex Caruso, Giga Maggies, brother.
Bad example. Everyone's going to roast me in the comments because of Alex Caruso being such a fan favorite. But anyway, what people really care about are the classic moments. Like, I want to see Magic hitting the little baby hook shot at the Boston Garden to just dismantle Larry Bird. And so I'm excited about this. Will I buy one? I don't know.
Yes,
but
you will.
Yes, I will. June 7th at 12 p.m. Pacific time, which I think I'll be sleeping because I'm in Spain. But maybe I'll have you stay up and log into my TopShot account and buy me one. I don't know, man.
Isn't that like 7 a.m. for you?
Maybe it is. Maybe I will be awake. I don't know. But you can own the Magic, and I would like to own. And so before I segue into owning the Magic, what do you think about this TopShot? I mean, do you like? It's actually like a full year later, so I haven't even thought about how I feel about these as an investment. But I do think like I literally received this email like a minute before we started recording. So I do think though that like a lot of times your original gut feeling as an investor is like the right one. And so my gut feeling on TopShot was like, man, when they come out with classic moments from the legends, from the top 10 guys of all time, those are going to be more investable, I think, than some of the like packs that have come out with just some weird like guys that are going to be obsolete in 2 years. They're not even going to be in the league in 2 years. But what do you think about just in general that take? And I mean, is this going to help reboot TopShot, or are we just kind of over it right now?
Well, so I personally am not in TopShot. I kind of got in too late to TopShot, and then so I was like, I would have been buying it at the peak, and then when it rode down early or late last year, early this year, I just wasn't really interested in it enough to get back into it. And at that point, I was really diving into MLB Candy, which is essentially the same thing, just different sport. And I went the only thing I can I don't even know if this is appropriate, but I went balls deep into Candy, the NFTs, and it wrecked my portfolio. Like I lost a ton of money in it. But I like the product. I just think I bought at the wrong time. But in terms of Top Shot, I too was way more interested in like the vintage plays of what it could look like. You know, like say you got the original footage to Michael Jordan hitting that game winner over the Knicks, you know, like, holy cow, that's super valuable, you know? But I mean, even earlier than that, imagine some of like the non 3-point footage being available. Like that would be sweet.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many, like, I don't know if you remember this, and I actually have no idea how old you are. I've said on the show I'll be 41 this year. But when I was growing up, I used to go to basketball camps every summer. And this one camp I went to every summer, showed NBA Superstars, the VHS tape. And it was like highlights of Charles Barkley to The Warrior and Larry Bird to Small Town. Magic was Control by Janet Jackson. And I don't know, just the nostalgia. And they had like this montage of like.
I'm not that old.
Yeah, okay. They had this montage of like Bob Cousy and John Havlicek and Pete Maravich and all these guys playing. And so anyway, the nostalgia of all those eras, I think that we've, you know, you maybe you don't have the nostalgia for like the Barkley and the Magic and that NBA Superstars video, but you know, some of us that do, these moments could be interesting. So like what you're talking about with Candy, and I totally get it. And I'm not saying to buy these by any means, but I do think, hey, it's another promotion for Magic. You know, Top Shot coming out with these is another promotion for Magic. And so
dude, just get us a show sponsor. Just call him up and say, hey, Mr. Magic, we will call this show Monday Magic.
I mean, for Irvin, you know, I would
because of course he's listening. He's listening right now. So
for Irvin, I would put, you know, I'd have Starbucks in there for free. I'd have if there's any Magic Johnson theaters still alive in the world, I'd put them in the show for free. Let's just talk about it for Magic. All right. Anyway, I do think. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Sorry to.
I do have one other take.
Yeah.
So there have been moments. So the vintage stuff is cool, and I think like they definitely over minted some stuff, like the Alex Caruso stuff. Like I am a fan of Alex because he went to A&M and all that's involved there for me. But is in regards to like the scrubs basically making plays, I don't care about that. But there have been a couple of plays that I've seen live that I was like, wow, you know, I probably would buy that as an NFT to just remember that moment. Like I remember opening day 2021 for baseball. Cabrera hits a home run in the snow in Detroit. And I really wasn't even that hyped about the game, but just that environment was so cool. Watching it snowing and a home run going out. Cabrera, we weren't sure how many years he was going to have left. And he just hits a home run, Oppo Taco. And I was like, man, I'd love to have that as an NFT. I mean, I don't know but for me, I remember watching it, and I was like, I would totally like to have that. Adley Rutschman's triple, his first base hit, I was like, I'd love to have that. And I think Candy did end up making that an NFT for yesterday's play of the day. But we'll talk about that later. But there have been situations where I'm like, I do want that or I would purchase that as an NFT. Last night, what's his name? Oh, not Jimmy Butler. We're going to talk about him in a minute. Gosh dang it. I was on a roll.
What team?
Warriors.
All right. Are we talking about
not Clay, not Steph.
Jordan
he played for the Timberwolves.
Oh, Andrew Wiggins.
Yeah, Wiggins threw down on Doncic last night.
Yeah.
Absolute poster. Originally they called it a charge, the Warriors challenge, and it ended up being like nothing.
It's the NBA.com app right here.
That was a sick play. Like one of the sickest dunks I've ever seen. And it was on Doncic too, which I don't know why Doncic jumped on that. He's the worst defender I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, that's not true. He's not the worst defender I've ever seen. But anyway, it was awesome.
Stay tuned, everybody. We are going to talk about Luka in this show because it's very relevant. But actually, that is a great segue. But before we get into sort of what to do with the cards of the players that are in the NBA conference finals, I did want to talk not necessarily about more Magic Johnson, but he happens to be a part of the next discussion because we've talked on this show. Actually, you've shown interest in and other people commenting. Thank you, by the way, people who have commented about this topic in the YouTube comments. Is why I use the PWCC vault and like what kind of services that they have. And so I figured this would be kind of cool because so we've talked about that on the show, but we've also talked about PSA submissions and how I have purchased over the last like 6 months. I've purchased like cards that have been PSA DNA certified on-card autos of like some legends that are like in older PSA slabs or don't have a card grade. So I wanted to experiment on 2 things. And if you're listening, don't worry, I'll walk you through it. If you're watching, you're about to see me share my screen here. But I actually figured out that PWCC will make a PSA submission for you. They'll actually make a submission to any grading company you want, but each grading company has a different process. And so they have kind of a special thing with PSA, with the PSA submission process where you work with a customer service representative. You basically just get on the online chat with PWCC and say, hey, I want to make a submission to PSA. They walk you through the process. It's really easy. So the first thing you do is obviously decide what cards you want to submit, what submission level. And this is actually going to be more about what submission levels are available at PSA right now that I didn't really know about because I hadn't really done a whole lot of research. But essentially what I decided—
So you sent one to BGS?
No, so I sent 4 cards to PSA, and my goal was to have them all, they're all already slabbed. So
these are crossovers?
Yeah, toggling tabs here, like you're not going to be able to see the card very large, but essentially you can see that I've sent these to collect.
Yeah.
Receiving. This is a Jerry Rice old blue slab, just an auto certification. This is a—
and we brought these cards up previously, right?
That's right. So I just wanted to kind of like update you and everyone that I actually have submitted these to PSA. So there's 2 old blue slabs, 1 Beckett slab, and then 1 newer slab that doesn't have a card grade. None of these have a card grade. So multiple goals here: get them in a new PSA slab, get a card grade and an auto grade on all of these. And so the way that I did this was through not the review, but I believe it was the crossover. Let me go to the actual link in my PSA dashboard so we can all get this accurate. So my submission now it's just taking me back. I'm trying to hold on 1 second. Sorry. I'll edit this out a little bit if it gets to be too long. But when you go start new submission in your PSA dashboard, and it was just a regular size card, and the submission type was crossover, because here's what happened. When you do review, it looks like they let you do what I wanted to do. But then when you go to the next step, and this would be the dual service card and autograph grade, by the way, because I believe, my hypothesis is that this is going to be sought after in the future, is on-card autographs of legends in newer PSA slabs that have both a card and an autograph grade. So like full transparency on everything. So they let you do the economy level if you're a member at $60 per card, which I thought was a pretty good deal, honestly. I don't know when I'm going to get them back. I kind of don't care because they're vintage. But then what happened?
I can speak to that.
Okay.
So I submitted mine 30 days ago, and they're already in or not even 30 days ago, and they're already in step 5 of 8.
That's amazing. That's really good. So, yeah, I mean, I was thinking maybe 3 months would be good, and it sounds like they would definitely be on track for that.
Yeah.
But the reason not to pick review is because whatever certification number you put in here, like it wouldn't accept it. So even like double and triple checking like the PSA certification numbers. So I went back and did the crossover, even with the PSA slabs. I just did the crossover and it worked. It accepted it. So crossover, dual service, which was the one I wanted. You don't have to select that if you don't want to. Read what the services are. Then economy pricing, $60. And then for me, when I typed the certification number in, cert number here, and then description player, like everything showed up. So description player showed up. I clicked it, current grade, current auto grade. And so that's where I just had everything accurately printed up on my label, then sent the PDF of the label and this PDF that I'm showing you guys, emailed that to the customer service at PWCC, aligned it with the submission number, the fulfillment request number. The PWCC service representative emailed me right back and said, hey, we got it. It's going to take a little bit longer for us to ship it because we got to go. When we get the cards out of the vault, we're going to do the PSA process of like putting the label on the box and putting the PDF of your submission inside the box all the way PSA wants it for you. So I'm pretty excited. Like, I think we all get excited about like our submissions. And so for me to be able to just like not even have my cards with me and not have to go through a third party, not that Wild Cards box breaks would have been amazing for it, but for me, it just would have been an extra step to ship it to you, where it's like I could just have my vault ship it. And it actually saves me money because it would have been shipping cost to you and then like twice, right? And so now I can avoid that and just deal with PSA and PWCC. And I'll keep all you guys updated, but I just wanted to share that on the show because you and some of the audience have asked about the vault services and that kind of thing. So unless something goes horribly wrong with this, I'm pretty happy with it so far.
That's pretty neat. So I know that you're going to national. PWCC will obviously be there. They always have like for instance, last year they had the spot right by the door. Like as soon as you walk in, it's like the PWCC vault stuff is right there. And I don't know if they do that on purpose, but it seems like they do. And they have like the freaking super nice, super valuable cards on display, like Horace Wagner, and they had like the $3 million Mahomes there last year. And so, but I wonder, like, so you're going to be there. PWCC is going to be there. Would they potentially bring some of your stuff to the national they give you if you wanted to? I don't know how that would work.
I mean, that's an interesting question. I think that they're obviously
that might be too much.
They're obviously sort of large enough to where they're definitely not like mom and pop, but their customer service in my experience so far has been personal enough to where like I know if I asked, they would consider it, or even if I said something like, hey, I'm the host of the Sports Card Strategy Show, kind of a thing, like not that that's like a big deal, but just saying like, hey, I've got this presence, and so also I'm going to be at the national, and I've been a client for the last year, like paying you guys X amount of money to be a client of yours. Would you do this to help me out? I would think they would consider it. I think I'm glad that you mentioned the national actually for a couple of reasons. Number one, I think what I might do is actually pitch them on a show sponsorship at the national. But I'm also like figuring out my national plan, right? So I think we all need to be figuring out our plan for the national right now. And I think a lot of what we're going to talk about on today's show is all in regards to the national, because I sort of see it as a turning point for me I think that everybody should see it as a turning point for the year. It's almost like a year end, year beginning type of situation in a lot of ways. It'll be my first one, but what I understand about it is that it's sort of a time to sell and reset and reinvest. And based on the time of the year, it could be better for people in buying particular sports than others. You can comment on that if you want, but yeah, my whole thought process right now with everything I'm doing is all around trying to be successful or put myself in a position to succeed after July 2022 based around like being at the national. So trying to be smart about what I ship to myself from my vault, what I do with it, what I take to the national to try to sell, what I try to sell online before the national so that I have money to maybe buy something. And if so, what is that going to be? So I'm kind of all consumed with my national strategy. My whole entire sports card investing strategy right now on May 23rd, May 24th, when this show airs is like, what am I doing for the national? So any comments on that before we get into more NBA?
I think the National is a great place to buy. It's not always a great place to sell. Now, it can be if you have the right cards or the right dollar amount of cards. Like no one's interested in buying, probably sub $100 cards at the National. There's a bazillion people there. If you're like, hey, you buying, or like if you walk up to a thing, the guy has your attention for like half a second and you're like, hey, are you guys buying? They're like, yeah, let's see what you got. And you see it over and over and over at these national booths. They're like, yeah, let me see. You hand it to them and it's like a PSA 9 fourth year LeBron. They're just like, no, man, I no. And they just, but like if you had like a Russell Wilson booklet auto, like they're buying that, you know what I mean? So it's like it depends on what level of card you have, but there's always going to be things at the national that you're going to want to look at and be like, holy cow, I could never see that anywhere else. Another thing that's kind of strange, or not strange but kind of cool, is like when you go to local shows, it's typically all like, like for me here, it's all basketball. All anybody cares about in Kentucky is basketball. And then there's football cards, but there's hardly any baseball, and there's never any soccer, and I'm never any F1, never any UFC, but like when you go to the national, it's like, I would say 50%, if not more, of the like vendor booths are vintage.
Okay.
So, like there's like just tons of vintage cards. So I didn't expect that, and I'm not really a vintage collector either. So I was walking around and I could see a bunch of really cool stuff, but like that's half the booths that I'm not engaging with. But the point of me going to national is I love making those connections of people that I'm going to be in the same room with once a year. And so like that was really big for us last year. Had a conversation with the CEO of Beckett, had a conversation with the CEO of Leaf, met the Loop people, which now I'm a Loop breaker, so that was a good connection. The sports card investor guys are there. Jimmy from Kentucky Roadshow is there. I get to meet, I know Jimmy like personally because we both live in Lexington, but like, but he's a big guy that you want to meet there. And he's a guy that you want to talk to. PWCC is there, eBay's there, Tops is there, Panini's there. So it's just like, it's kind of crazy. So
I think my national strategy is going to be business development, to your point. Sorry, audience, if this is boring to you guys, but I think it could be relevant to you because I'd like to have some more people on the show with us. And so I'd like to go around to meet all the people you just mentioned and more that are businesses in the hobby and try to just line them up as guests on our show,
Oh, absolutely.
And if there's anyone that anyone that you audience want to comment on that you'd like to hear from, I have no fear when it comes to approaching people from a business development standpoint. I don't like to, this is funny because like, I don't like to talk to the parents at my son's baseball games. I like to
Well, they also only speak Spanish, so
yeah,
that's good.
that's true. That is a barrier for me. But even in the United States, I never really was one for chit chatting with the other parents. But I do like business development. It kind of is my thing. So I'll go talk and try to get some people on the show that you guys are interested in. And yeah, and I think like it's interesting what you said. I mean, my strategy I think is going to be, and this could change, but I think I'm going to look for Giannis autos
Oh, they'll be there. There's Giannis stuff everywhere there.
that I don't. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think I'm gonna try to move out of some things so that I can move into some things like Giannis autos that, um, and I may bring like my Pedri autos to the show. You know, I may bring some F1 autos to the show that I have because while those things are popular, uh, I've heard that they're not always plentiful at shows like the National. This year could
Yeah.
be different, but you know, soccer autos of guys like Pedri or even just Mbappe slabs. I mean, people might not be interested in those. I get it, but if there's not a lot of soccer and there's not a lot of F1 represented at these shows at the National specifically, if 50% of the vendors are traditionally have been vintage, well, then there's definitely not going to be much soccer in F1.
Yeah, I can't think of any F1 booths that I saw, and I can think of like maybe 4 or 5 soccer only booths. So
Yeah.
I mean, and the only card I bought last year from the floor was a Fati card. I bought a PSA 10 Fati when I was there. So
Yes, you know I love Fati. And actually, quick shout out, I wanted to mention this on the show, so this is perfect. You and Trey Calvin at FC Cardboard on Twitter, and you are at Lefty McKee on Twitter. You guys did an amazing job on the Soccer Card Strategy Show episode 3, which is out now. Check it out on the Sports Card Strategy feed on Apple, Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. You guys talk a lot about everything really in that half an hour, quick show, but it's pretty power packed. And you mentioned my guy Gavi, and it did make me happy to hear that Trey also likes Gavi. He's a guy that not to take us too far off track here, because I want to scoot back to some national stuff and then hit some basketball before we get into the rest of the show. But Gavi doesn't have any real investable cards yet. You know, like
he will next month.
Okay, all right.
May 25th, man, that Chrome UEFA is coming out, and his Chrome UEFA cards are, I think I'm going to be searching those out. So
yeah, if you're listening to this later in the week, it's already out. But if you're listening to this right when it airs,
true.
It'll be tomorrow. It'll be tomorrow. Because this is going to air. This airs on Tuesday, May 24th. So if you're listening to it on May 24th, it's tomorrow. If you're listening to it on the 25th, it comes out today. So that's pretty exciting. Topps Chrome UEFA Champions League. And you're saying there's Gavi autos in there? Or Gavi investable cards, rather.
Well, there's Gavi cards in there, and they're going to be the Chrome variation. Yeah. So I don't know if there's autos. I'll look. You keep talking. I'll look.
Check the checklist. All right. So Kendall's going to look that up, and I'm going to run you guys through some stuff that I wanted to talk about that's relevant to my national strategy. And then Kendall's going to know enough about this to kind of chime in with his opinion. So I purchased mainly sealed wax, but also some singles over the last 5 months in my new sports card investing strategy, which was to buy, it was kind of a few different things. One, it was to buy more on-card auto rookies of players that I believe in that are well represented on our sports card investment report at nooffseason.com. But it was also to buy, to invest specifically in the 2021-22 NFL and NBA rookie classes. And the way that I decided to do that was to buy sealed wax. So that kind of got me into this buying habit of buying sealed wax, specifically hobby boxes. And then talking to Kendall more, who's obviously a baseball card guy, he then we talked more about Bowman, and we did an episode on Bowman for Dummies and all that stuff. So you guys want to go back in the library and check that out. It's probably still very relevant. But I wanted to just quickly walk everyone through like how I'm doing on my investments, because it's important, I think, to have a process for monitoring like what you bought and then like whether you're up or down, and then try to decide what to do about it. Because if you fall asleep at the wheel, if you make a decision and you're like, I'm going to hold this for a year, fine, you can fall asleep at the wheel a year or longer. But if you're more like me and you're thinking like, I might want to sell this at any given time when the market's up for it so that I can get my profit, move out of it, and then decide what to do with my money, I think that you need to kind of do what I'm about to show you. And so before the show real quick today, I wanted to know, especially with the national coming up, where am I up and where am I down on a lot of the sealed wax? And thankfully I'm not really underwater heavily on any of it. And I'm actually up on some of the singles I bought. So we can kind of X out of this Trevor Lawrence. I'm actually up on Trevor Lawrence on-card auto from a weird set called Elements. And then one box I decided to buy, Panini Donruss Elite Hobby, is actually up from where I bought it. I bought it directly from Panini. Now it's only up about $25, but man, that's better than being down at all, right? I mean, to be up $25,
Yeah.
it just, especially like this thing only came out a few months ago. And I mean, it just feels better than being down at all. So, I'd rather be right at even or up $25, which is pretty much where this thing is. Darius Garland single that I bought on card auto. It's that not many sales of it, but it looks like it's up, and it may be. I bought an SGC 1010 auto. I think I might cross that over to PSA because it just looks like PSA is selling consistently for about 30% more than the SGC version. So it could be worth the crossover there now that I've done that. Like I mentioned earlier, even something like Panini Illusions Mega Box that I bought directly from Panini because I wanted to invest in the 2021-22 rookie class for football, is right about even from where it's sold. It's up a few dollars. So just to be up a few dollars actually feels pretty good. Same thing with kind of like an obscure thing that I might break, like an NBA Hoops blaster box. I bought 6 NBA Hoops blaster boxes. Right about even with that. Now, the bigger stuff I bought is actually up. So the Panini Origins first off the line, I'm up a couple $100 on that, which I was shocked. Honestly, like I was fully expected to be at this point in time down on my Panini Origins. It's a set that I like, but it seems to drop in value once like Contenders comes out and that sort of thing. So I'm actually pretty happy with the 2021-22. Now the singles of this class are like selling like ridiculously high, which is really what the point of me bringing this up to you, Kendall, is, and to the audience, but to specifically get Kendall's take on a lot of this is, do I ship this to myself when I get back to the United States in late June, early July? Do I ship it to myself and do I rip any of it? Or do I stay strong? I think this is the toughest thing. Hit us up in the comments if you agree or disagree. But to me, this is my toughest thing. Like, do I stay patient and hold this wax sealed? Like here's another example, Panini 2021 Contenders Football, first off the line. That's about even from where I bought it. I'm just going to fly through these before Kendall answers my question. Panini Prism Premier League Soccer just wrote a article for Sports Card Investor on this set and why I bought it. So check out sportscardinvestor.com to see that article. But do I rip this? Because the singles are selling like crazy, but the hobby box is down a little bit. So the price of this wax is about even. Everything I'm showing you on my screen, Playbook NFL is about even from where I bought it, hobby box. Limited is about even from where I bought it, hobby box. Bowman Chrome, we talked about this one. Sorry, not Chrome. 2022 Bowman first edition hobby box, about even from where I bought it. All the wax, MLS, a little bit up or even from where I bought it. 2021 Topps Chrome, just to clarify. 2021 Topps Chrome F1 hobby box, even. So Kendall, all things considered here, I am up about 15% on my sealed wax investment, or even. And we actually didn't talk about what I bought, the 6 hobby boxes of 2022 Bowman baseball. Those are actually down from where I bought them. Not by much, but I mean, it's a little concerning because here's my thing. This is the last time I'm going to say this, then I'll shut up. The singles from each one of the hobby boxes that I bought over the last 5 months are amazing sales. And we're talking about the autos, we're talking about the serial number, the big players, right? So we know the risk. The risk is, do you rip this? But I feel like I'm at a tipping point, and I either hold pat on the big stuff that I bought, or I rip the big stuff that I bought, hoping to get some of the singles. And if I get one big single that'll pay for my investment, then I either break even or profit. And then, of course, there is a middle ground. And the middle ground could be, look, I bought, 2 of the Prism Premier League. Do I ship myself one? Do I do one of them? I bought 2 Origins. Do I ship myself one and do one of them? Like, do I do like a little bit of I bought 6 NBA Hoops Blasters. Do I ship myself 3 of them or one of them? And then, so anyway, this is like all consuming for me right now going into national. And I only have a small window for it. So, what do you think I should do, Kendall? I wanted to ask you this selfishly on the show.
Well, before you said anything about like, oh, I'm particularly like, this is my favorite product, especially with the Panini basketball product with Luke on the front. What's it called again?
What I was talking about was Origins, which I don't
Origin,
know.
Yeah,
I don't know how it holds its value long term as a sealed product. But the singles do sell pretty well.
So the way I look at it is typically when there's singles that are, if it's more than like 3 players, like if it's more than 3 or 4 guys that are in the set that are going for big money, then I would probably hold it, just because that's going to continue to get more and more expensive the rarer and rarer they get, especially the longer time that it goes on. For instance, the Bowman products that are down right now, there's guys in there that are going to be absolute studs, and most of them are so young they're not even on the top 100 list. But like a guy like me or whatever that knows the pedigree of those players is like, these players are all going to be in the top 100. Like it's going to be a large checklist of dogs basically. So like you want to keep something like that. I'm actually not a fan of ripping wax for singles. I think you're basically losing money. Like, because the odds of you pulling a Luka auto or something out of that is slim. I mean, that's the point of it. And so let somebody else take that risk, and you just stay steady in the profit. Like, yeah, it's fun to think about, I could pull a card that's worth almost this whole investment alone. Great. Or you could have absolutely nothing but bulk cards at the end of it, and you're just like, wow, I have nothing to show for this, and now I have 10 million pieces of cardboard that I have to figure out where I'm going to put them.
So I do hate that.
Like, I'm a big proponent of buying singles and selling wax.
Got it. Love it. You have kept me focused. That is what I set out to do. And, we all have moments, at least I do. I don't know. I don't want to speak for everyone watching and listening, but I certainly have moments where I'm like, oh my God, like it's hard being patient. This wax isn't like double the price yet. Like, should I move out of this? Should I rip it? Like, what should I do? But I think it is a good exercise to do what I just did, which is like go check the prices so that you don't freak out. What have they sold for? And then talk to a friend who knows what they're talking about, which to me is Kendall. So I think I'm going to.
If you wanted to rip some of that stuff, I think the stuff that would be like an easy rip, is like those NBA hoops blasters, that'd be a fun rip, but also at the same time, like it's a low end product for the most part. So like you're not going to lose tons of money if you open it. And you know, if there is an auto, if there's a Cade Cunningham auto in there, like, whoa, hello, you know, like you're way in the green. But or the Topps Chrome stuff, like it's, you know, it's like whatever, you probably didn't pay a whole lot for it, and it's, if you just want a fun rip, like if you're tingling for a rip, then that's probably one of them that I would say, yeah, go ahead and rip that one. It's kind of like almost like a treat yourself type thing, because there is possibility of you pulling a pretty sick card out of some of those things, but it's not like a National Treasures box or something where like if you don't pull something awesome, it's gonna hurt you a lot, you know, like
right. Yeah. And Contenders, I think, would be like that. And I did buy the Contenders basketball and football boxes with the intent to hold for like at least 2 years, because I do believe that those rookie classes will have some guys that 2 years from now. And that's basically what you're telling me about Bowman. So you're telling me Bowman baseball is kind of the same thing. 2 years from now, there's going to be guys on the top 100 list, if not sooner. So I mean, there's Khalil Watson, who I know you don't love him, but he's already in the top 25. And so anyway, all right, well, we've spent a lot of time on that. So I wanted to move real quick into a little bit more basketball. Let's talk real quick about, so right now we're in the conference finals, and I think this is a pretty relevant topic of conversation that we need to emphasize to the audience, and also get people commenting on this, because I think that I'll call it like a problem, honestly, is there's so much hype around guys that are playing. And I mean, it's good. It's not totally a problem, but it's like, it's good for the hobby to have people buying cards at these times. But it's also, as a sports card investor, not the time to buy. And what I'm talking about specifically is we are currently in the NBA conference finals, where the Heat are up over the Celtics 2-1. Jimmy Butler is a guy that I wrote about in the Sports Card Investment Report back in February. He made his first appearance into the top 100. And I very specifically said, buy Jimmy Butler now, sell him when the Heat get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And so I don't make calls like that all the time, but when I do, I want to call him out on the show, because look at Jimmy Butler's cards. They're all skyrocketing in value right now because of how he's playing in the Eastern Conference Finals. And the time is now to sell Jimmy Butler. It is not the time to buy Jimmy Butler cards. If you are holding Jimmy Butler, sell right now. You can easily buy back in later. And another guy who fits that profile is Grant Williams of the Celtics. He's just a guy that he's a role player. He's a sixth man. He's a role player. And this is the cool part about sports card investing, is like, you can make a call like Grant Williams. And if you did, like, that's awesome. If you bought Grant Williams back like a year, like not a year ago literally, but like sometime within the last 12 months, and now his Prism Silver's up 127%. His Optic Hollow's up 51%. His Prism Base is up 77%. That's awesome. Good for you. Like, sell Grant Williams right now, because his value will never again be this high. Even if the Celtics make it to the NBA Finals, I still don't think his value holds like this. And so there's other guys that fit this category. I'm not going to tell you to sell Jason Tatum right now, because he has a different career trajectory at this point than both of the guys that I just mentioned. But you may want to consider it, and you may want to consider selling Luka, and you may want to consider selling other guys. It's not as easy to get your money out always, but Kendall, what's your take on kind of my comments here on the NBA, where we are with the NBA and sort of timing the market?
If you don't sell Grant Williams right now, you're playing hot potato and you're about to get burned. Like, Grant Williams is not really, he's not a stud. I'll be honest. Yeah, like he's playing really good, but he's not a stud. He might be the fifth best player on that team, fourth, maybe fifth on that team. So yes, if you have a Grant Williams card and you're trying to hold for peak value, then you should have sold it yesterday or today. Like you've got to get out. Now I'm sure there's not very many people that are holding Grant Williams, but the Jimmy Butler thing is hilarious. I think, Paul, I talked to you about this in our little text chat the other day, but Jimmy Butler, obviously he's had a really cool story, comes from being homeless to going to junior college. Then he goes to Marquette, then he gets drafted and goes to the Bulls. Like then he has he's had a crazy career trajectory from leaving Chicago. Like at one point he was like a team 8 that you never wanted to play with. And now he's in Miami and he's like absolute dog. So, but interestingly, I think there's one thing that could potentially hype his value. And there's been a rumor going around the past week that there is like there has been and always has been like this thing where Michael Jordan has one estranged son that he had out of wedlock in an affair. Interestingly enough, Jimmy Butler does not have basically is raised by his mother as a single mother. And if you look at the side-by-sides, like if you Google it, Jimmy Butler and Michael Jordan favor each other quite, more than I would think. And so like, if you look at the images, like it's an insane rumor, but what if, Paul, it came out that, that Jimmy and Michael actually both do know that Michael is his father, and it comes out like, during this run to the finals. Can you imagine what that would do to his card prices? That would be the only reason that I would say hold on Jimmy Butler. But because I think like he's near the tail end of his career. I think he's probably got less than 5 years left, but or maybe I'm wrong about that, but I don't think he's got he's past his prime, I think. But that would just be the weirdest and funniest thing I've ever heard, because he actually went to Chicago, played where his quote unquote dad would have played or was a hero. They're just his story about getting to the NBA is in itself amazing. He would, if he is Michael's son, he would actually be the only son that ended up making it to the NBA, right. And he was estranged. So Michael didn't want anything to do with him, and he actually is the one that carries the torch to the NBA. Man, this story would just write itself, my man. But I know that that's very much speculation, so don't hold on to your cards for that to happen and come out as true. But it is a funny story to see the side by sides, and if you've watched any of the videos, it's like there's enough things going on that a conspiracy theorist would definitely fall all the way in on this. So I'm not saying I believe it, but I think it would be a hilarious story, especially with the Chicago Bulls connection. That would just be pretty awesome. But
oh my gosh. I've said it before. I am a storyline guy. And if this were actually true, I think it would make my entire life. This would be, this would be I know it's a weird thing to say, but this would be the best. This could be the best story of all time. Of all.
I mean, they would write movies about it.
Any better. Especially if Jimmy wins a NBA championship. But obviously the conspiracy theory is fun, but what they need to just do is a DNA test and then just settle it, Call for a DNA test. Ancestry.com. New
Dude,
show.
Call for a DNA test. Have Jimmy Springer or Jerry Springer announce it. Michael, you are the father.
23andMe and Ancestry.com can sponsor the show. We're looking for sponsors. So if anyone from the companies are listening because of this video clip, we're not usually clickbaity here at the Sports Card Strategy Show. I would say we're 99.9% pretty clean with that, but this might be the 0.1% where I just get outrageously clickbaity with my title and everything of this shortened clip from this show. So,
is Michael Jordan Butler's father? And how do we invest?
There's no why sports card investors should buy Michael Jordan's son's card.
Interestingly enough, if that came out, I think Butler's card values would fly, and I think Michael's would go down.
That would be interesting to follow. I don't know. I mean, but what would a dual patch Michael Jordan Jimmy Butler patch go for?
Oh my gosh.
Chicago
if there
Bulls.
is one out there.
Everybody go search eBay right now for a Jimmy Butler, Michael Jordan, Chicago Bulls dual patch card now. Go get the card. That would be the card to own. Father-son duo. You heard it here first. Sports card. Kendall's looking. Okay, I'm going to keep talking while Kendall's looking. I'm going to segue us to a topic that actually is a play and not a conspiracy theory. And that is something that Kendall brought up on the last episode. He mentioned that LeBron James, who deserves to be in this conversation with Michael Jordan, it's a great time to buy LeBron James cards. And I totally do not disagree with Kendall. In fact, I agreed with him on the show. But what I wanted to make sure that we did here was that we followed up and that we were very specific about this, because my concern with LeBron James and other athletes who I'm sure you all in the audience have a ton of examples of, is that just there's a ridiculous amount of his cards. We've had Andy Kaysen, our football card strategy show host at nooffseason.com, talk about the amount of Joe Burrow cards. And he says there's something like almost 5,000 of them. And LeBron might be close to that. They're going to have to fact check me, but just looking at LeBron James rookie cards, he might be close to that. So what I want to talk about here is I did a little bit of digging, and I don't know what his prices are going to do. I don't think any of us really know what his prices are going to do. Like, they've gone down. So is it a better time now to invest in LeBron than it was 12 months ago? Yes, probably. 18 months ago, definitely, because that was February 2021, which is like the peak. But what I want to make sure we don't do is we don't tell people to just go buy LeBron, because I'm not confident that we're going to see an uptick in LeBron prices anytime soon, meaning like anytime in the next 2 years. Now, will there be an uptick in LeBron prices should he make it to another NBA Finals? Will there be an uptick in LeBron prices when he retires? When he will beat Kareem Abdul-Jabbar as the all-time leading scorer in the NBA. So definitely there will be an uptick in his prices when that happens, because that is a once-in-a-lifetime thing. That's not just like a regular accomplishment. That's like a big effing deal. So there's definitely markers. We've talked about Bronny on the show, him playing with his son, all that stuff. Yes. There are tons of markers for LeBron. But if you're kind of like me and you don't necessarily want to hold for like years on a card, here's a couple plays for you that I found, and you can love me or hate me in the comments. But I think grading specific LeBron cards make a lot of sense. This is not something that we talk about very often anymore in the hobby because of PSA being shut down for a year and all that stuff. But I think now that PSA is back open at the economy service level, what you can do, I think, is you can buy LeBron rookie cards, 2 or 3 specifically that I've seen. One is the 2003 Fleer base. And if you just kind of look at the raw prices, the raw price of this card is about at what a PSA 7 is. And the 2003 Topps Chrome is about the same thing. Now, one's a little bit riskier than the other because you can buy the Fleer base for about $400. The Topps Chrome is going to run you raw more like over $1,000. But if you were to get a PSA 8 or even 7 of that, you're kind of breaking even. If you end up pulling a 9 or a 10, you're doubling or even 7xing your profit margin on those cards. And then if you look at the 2003 Topps base, where he's holding up his jersey, the Topps Chrome, I think, is the one where he's in the jump shot, and the jersey is the Topps base, I believe, paper. But that's raw around $300 right now. In PSA 9, it's double that. In PSA 8, it's more than that. In PSA 7, it's about the same as that. In PSA 6, it's not even that much less than that. And in PSA 10 or BGS 9.5, you're looking at a big profit margin. Now the crossover grading, if you're not with me on the raw play, the crossover grading from SGC or BGS over to PSA, you still get a pretty solid profit margin if you were to buy like an SGC 8, 8.5, SGC 9. And if you were to get a higher grade than that over at PSA, or if you were to buy a BGS 9.5 and it crosses over, even worst case scenario, to like a PSA 9 or PSA 8, you're not out that much money and it's worth the risk to try to get a 10. So I just think do some research around grading those, specifically those 3 LeBron cards. Can you find them raw in decent enough condition to where you're confident to get at least a 7 from PSA? Or if you're not that risky and you can't see the card raw, do you want to cross it over? I think it's a play right now. I think that might be a better LeBron play for people who are like me and may want to move out of it before the next 2 years, rather than people maybe more like you or you Kendall, or you audience, fill in the blank here, who may be okay holding for 5 to 10 years on a LeBron card.
Yeah, I think I brought up LeBron specifically for the long-term play. Like, I think what I'm trying to do is, like, when I look to my right here, I've got all of my, cards. Like, I've got them all shelved and in boxes over here. And I'm thinking, okay, my strategy is to turn these cards into cards that I send to a vault.
Yep.
And the cards that I send to a vault go and play towards my net worth.
Yep.
And so like so for instance, if you did listen to the soccer episode that we put out that is airing today, as like whenever this episode's out, whenever it airs, that me and Trey talked about. So Trey's strategy is he is selling investable cards to build into his PC so he can show off cool soccer cards in his office that he wants to look at all the time. That is not my strategy. I do not care what these things look like. I want them to build my net worth. And so, like, not that I think that Trey's dumb. Like, that's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, that's not my strategy. And so, like, all these cards over here, like, generally, I don't have one card that you could not offer me a price on. And so, like for instance, that Mike Trout I bought a couple of, like a month or so ago. It's at PSA right now. That's going to vault. That's going to, for me, that's one of the first ones. I'm going to set it and forget it type thing. That's why I was thinking LeBron, because anytime I could like shave a little bit off of my entry into that. I mean, I was just looking at pop reports for these 2003 Chrome and 2003 base, the one where he's holding the jersey. There's 12,000 graded PSA cards of the one where he's holding the jersey. And there's 7,664 graded of the Chrome version. Like, that's a lot. That's a lot of pop report.
Yes.
I mean, there's 2,184 PSA 10 of the Chromes. Now, like, when you're thinking about all the investors out there, that's not very many. And I would imagine that out of those 2,184 PSA 10s, I would imagine there's 3 or 4 whales in there that hold most of those.
Yep.
So the rarity aspect is probably okay, but what if one of those whales decides to sell everything? Like, that's where I think this investment, like in this investment section, like when we're talking about non-traditional investments, something that the sports card world can grow in is actually, like, I don't know how you would do this, but unique holders would be a really big thing to know. How many people own what, and if you could track that at all.
Yeah.
So it's like,
that
would be really hard.
Who owns what percentage of the market share of a particular card? I think that's a good point, because I do think that plays into sort of risk management of it. Like, if one person or one company decides to liquidate their LeBrons or their Tigers or their Steph Currys or whatever, it definitely would affect the market. We've seen the opposite of that. We've seen the market be affected by apparently like one company or one person from time to time buying all of a card and then listing that. And so, I think that LeBron's pop count is definitely something to look at. I like that you did that. I like that you brought that up. I also like that you said the demand is probably for someone like LeBron always going to outweigh the pop count. So you probably shouldn't compare it to some other players, but make sure you're buying the right LeBron card. I'm with you though, Kendall. Like my strategy is the same as your strategy. You articulated it well. That's what I'm trying to do also. So, to me, it feels riskier to spend $7,000 on a PSA 10 Topps Chrome 2003 than to spend $1,000 on a raw and then spend $60 getting it graded. And if it comes back a 7 or a 6, I'm probably still okay on my $1,000 for the now, and it might even be great for the later. I mean, who knows? But if that gets a 9 or a 10, I immediately double or immediately 7x on an investment that we were a minute ago talking about taking years to materialize. That's where I'm just less patient. And I know people will be like, well, guarantee the 10 by the 10. It's going to appreciate. Sure, I agree with that strategy too. I just wanted to bring something else to the table for those of you that might not want to. That might be okay spending $1,000 or $1,060 to get a graded LeBron card, but not okay necessarily with spending $2,000 or more on it. So yeah,
I think it's a strong like long-term play, but not a great short-term play.
Yeah, if you buy a LeBron PSA 9 because your budget's $2,000 on the Topps Chrome or the Topps paper, I might be getting that right. No, I think I'm getting it right. I think it is the Topps Chrome. But anyway, if your budget's $2,500 and you spend $2,500 on a PSA 9, I mean that thing might not go over. That could be $1,900 a year from now. Like it's got to be a long. So.
And for reference, just because this is a card we've talked about previously, in like in terms of pop reports, that 2008 Kobe that we had talked about, where 2008 Kobe he's being guarded by LeBron in the Topps Chrome, the sideways card, the horizontal card. That one, the pop count and all total graded from PSA is 1,300. So wow. The Topps Chrome of LeBron is 7 times more out there. That's not English did not come out correctly there, but basically like the card is 7 times overgraded than it is this Topps card. Obviously it's just a regular 2008 Kobe LeBron. Like it would have been nothing but it is something because it's both of them guarding each other and
Yeah. And I think that's what I mean also when I say like be careful buying LeBron rookies sort of blindly, because there are just so many of them. Like, I mean, and I'm not even talking about the pop count. I'm talking about just like, I don't know how many different LeBron rookie cards were produced, but I mentioned Andy's data from the Football Card Strategy Show with Joe Burrow, and it would not shock me if it's something like 3,000 to 5,000 different LeBron. I mean, Upper Deck, for crying out loud, had like 250 different or something ridiculous. Correct me in the comments because I know I'm wrong. But anyway, just a couple quick more basketball notes real quick, like just to hammer our points home and also make another point that I wanted to make real quick, which is you don't always get the value of the card that other people got. So as we talk about moving out of Jimmy Butler, moving out of Grant Williams, as we talk about like even moving out of a guy like Steph Curry, which call me crazy, but I just moved out of a Steph Curry card because it was a 2009 Panini PSA 9 of him in a Golden State Warriors uniform. I didn't project that as a long-term investment. I projected it as a flip this year. And value-wise, I was right. But when I actually executed the sale, for whatever reason, my eBay auction did not materialize the way that I had hoped it would. And so I ended up being underwater on a Steph Curry rookie, which kind of sucks. But I do think that it all kind of goes to, I probably bought it at the wrong time. I bought it in February, and I probably should have bought it in December, or I probably should have bought it. I probably should have waited until the season was over, and then the off season kind of dies down, because while I thought I bought it while he was injured, so I thought it was going to materialize and I could sell during the conference finals for a profit. And in theory, I would have had my eBay auction just done better, had more bids. But what other things can you do that are in your control? Sometimes eBay auctions aren't really in your control. What can you do that's in your control? I think you can buy at better times. And so even though he was injured, other people probably had the same idea I had. It probably wasn't the best time to buy. And so looking at times like August, September, even December to buy cards like this is what I probably should have done. And so lastly, I would say I have question marks next to guys like, do you still buy Jason Tatum or Tyler Hero right now? I would say no. I would say avoid the temptation to buy anyone playing right now in the NBA playoffs, NBA conference finals, NBA finals, because
I mean, even beyond that, I wouldn't even be buying NBA cards right now.
Yeah. No, I mean,
Shai's cards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, his cards are up 30% almost.
Yeah.
And the Thunder, I mean, that's probably because some of the hype around Thunder being able to get the number 2 overall pick, which came out last week, that they think Chet Holmgren is going to fall to number 2. First off, skinniest lineup I've ever seen in my life if he goes there.
Pokashevsky
and Chet Holmgren. Then you got Baisley, who's long. You got Shai, who's a pretty tall point guard.
And Giddey. Don't forget.
Oh, yeah, and then you can't unorthodox Giddey out there, too. Thunder are going to be the strangest looking team you've ever seen.
Giddey's hair probably weighs more than his body does, I would think. So, yeah.
Well, Chet Holmgren's jersey probably weighs more than him, so.
I think you're right. I think there's like this hype around the entire league right now, not only because the playoffs are still happening, but also because of the draft. Then you've got the summer league, and there's almost no off season for basketball, similar to there is for football. But there are better buying pockets that I mentioned. Right, and also, like, if you go to eBay and just search, first of all, go to NBA, go to Google and Google 2021 NBA draft results, and then copy and paste any of those guys into Google along with the terms contenders rookie auto, contenders rookie ticket auto. And they're just too expensive right now, like all of them. There's one guy that I mentioned on the Basketball Card Strategy Show, and I'm going to mention a couple more guys on an upcoming episode of the Basketball Card Strategy Show. But Cameron Thomas is probably the only guy that I feel is underpriced, maybe in the entire NBA right now. So I agree with what you're saying right now, Kendall. So, all right, cool. Well, let's move on.
I did look it up. There's 62 different rookie cards, not counting parallel special edition cards or other inserts.
All right. Nice.
For LeBron.
Thanks for that data. Did you find the data you were looking for related to the earlier topic? Or was
Jimmy
that it?
Butler, Michael Jordan?
Jimmy Butler, Michael Jordan.
There is, as far as I can tell, there is no dual auto.
No dual auto. Probably not dual auto, though, because Jordan's upper deck specific. But maybe I'm thinking maybe there's like a dual. Maybe there's just a card that they're both on. It's like a Bulls legend card. I don't know. You don't have to look it up, but like a Bull, like something like your Kobe LeBron example, where there's a card with both of them on it for some reason. They didn't play at the same time, but anyway. So, all right, moving on to another topic. Let's talk about a couple other things that we want to circle back around on from earlier shows. So one of them from last week is Adley Rutschman. He was in our segment of MLB call-ups to potentially make plays on, and that happened very quickly. Less than a week later, he got called up by the Baltimore Orioles. Very, very highly touted prospect. He was the number 1 prospect basically on everyone's list at that point. And so he came up and he played well. And I have not noticed much movement in his cards, his big cards. I haven't seen many sales since he got called up and had a couple hits, a big triple in his debut, etc. Kendall, does that mean that either I'm missing something, or does that mean that people are just holding Rutschman right now? What's your take? What's your updated take on Adley Rutschman since he's been called up and has a couple big league hits already?
Yeah, I'm looking at the Bowman Chrome Auto on Sports Card Investor, and there's just not a lot that have been sold. But actually, the listing count is pretty low too. For me, I think this kind of is a couple of different things. Adley is amazing. I'll give you that. He hits a triple in his first at bat. It's insane. But he's also an Oriole who have a small market share. Traditionally, I mean, like, they're just not a massive team. He's a catcher. Number two, catchers are not super investable. I would say they're pretty low to the bottom in terms of investability. Given some, outliers there, there's probably the positions that are way more investable, as like shortstop, third base, outfield, things like that. And three, I think people in their minds, like, they see Torque, they see Rutschman, and then they're just like, okay, same guy. They're just like they came out back to back, and like there was a lot of hype on both of them. And then you had the 2020 year where there was just a lot lost, and they were both kind of right there. And I think everybody's just like, I don't know what's going on here. Like, so unless you are a massive prospector or you're big into, like, I don't even have Adley Rutschman cards that I am selling. And I'm a big, huge baseball Bowman guy. One, because they were too expensive to get, because that 2019 Bowman draft is insanely expensive. But Rutschman is a guy that I honestly think might still be a buy. And that's super weird saying like where he's at right now. I think he's a top 5 catcher in baseball at the end of the season. And so, I mean, he's only up 18%, and that's only on one of his cards. Everything else is down still. So if you can go in here and like find some good deals, feel free to jump on them, I think, because by the end of this year, I mean, I still think there's a chance he makes the All-Star team. I mean, he's got enough time between now and the All-Star break that there is a chance where he could make it in there if he just explodes, and he could potentially still win Rookie of the Year. So, I mean, at $1,500, like, maybe that's like, I haven't done enough research to compare him against other players at his position or other players at that price point. But it's an interesting discussion because he's just not. If you look at guys, and we've talked about this a lot of times, where there's some guys that just aren't as hyped, even though they're just as good as other players, I think Adley falls into that category. So
yeah,
obviously invest with caution and do your own research, but he's going to be very good and going to be very good for a long time. And I think he probably stays behind the dish too, which is really important. He's not going to turn into a first base DH role. He's pretty good with the glove. So,
yeah. I wanted to talk more about him and get your take because, there's like this difference between baseball and every other sport in that when you're prospecting, sort of the call up is kind of the moment to potentially sell, like pee or get off the pot kind of thing. And so it's like what do you do with Adley? It seems like most people, based on the data that I'm seeing, which doesn't always tell the whole story, but it gives you a snapshot, is most people are just holding him. And so you're also kind of saying like you feel like he's a little bit low and believing in him longer term. So I think he might be an anomaly in the whole don't buy at certain times thing, because it looks like, I think if you can get into an auction, my experience is that getting into an auction rather than like a buy it now or an or best offer thing is a little bit better, just because, or even in a Facebook group and try to make some offers to try to get, I mean, you can do offers on buy it now on some of them, but I just think, like, for example, this auction, which is a PSA 10 auto, I think it's a card. This looks like a card grade 10. And it's 13 bids. There's still 3 days left, which means this thing could be a $10,000 card. We don't know, but it's at 1550 right now, which seems like a bid that could be reasonable to get in on. This one has 0 bids. The opening bid, they want 1,500 for it. There's still 4 days left. Maybe it's like a 1 or 2 bid thing and you can get it reasonable. It's PSA 9, but it's out of 250 auto. I mean, these are high end cards that I think other prospects potentially wouldn't be this low. So it's an interesting thing with Adley Rutschman. And yeah, drop us a line in the comments or go to sportscardstrategy.com, join the Facebook group by clicking the link.
So let me put that into perspective. So that card, the green one, that's currently at a couple days left on auction, Torx has that same card right now in PSA 10 on offer for $6,000.
Yeah. So it's a different, and these are back to back. Like Rutschman was the first overall pick in 2019. Torque was the first overall pick in 2020. Definitely a lot more hype around Torque, but Adley just got his first.
But I think Adley will be better.
There you go. I mean, I said to my son yesterday, I was like, wow, because my son brought up the triple on his Instagram and showed me, and I said, yeah, I mean, it took Adley 1 at bat. I think it took Torque like at least 20 or 30 at bats to get his first hit. And I know that doesn't mean anything really in the long term of a career, but I think it does actually mean quite a bit for the hobby value, because it's just as much about hype and attention and the perception of how good a player is definitely outweighs like what they're going to do in their career. People are just less patient. So, when Adley comes in and has a triple in his first at bat, it's a Tops Now card for it. And all this stuff adds up. I'm not saying buy the Tops Now, but I'm saying like when an email blast goes out to everyone in Tops's list that Adley Rutschman had a triple in his first at bat, that has an impact that Torque, whiffing 20 times or whatever it was and batting 167 after his first 50 MLB at bats, like that doesn't help his hobby value. So I think that, you might.
Rutschman is just an absolute pure hitter too. Like he doesn't strike out. His WRC plus, which basically is at 100 for an average level hitter, he's never been under that, except for in 2019 when he first got to the minor leagues. He was down a little bit, but he's like destroyed pitching at every level. And then he comes up and immediately has a triple, and he still has a 164, which means he's 64% better than the league average. Like, the guy's a beast. But, yeah. So, I would say he's undervalued, personally.
Love it. Well, yeah, I definitely want to get your take on these guys. And during the season, I think it's important to continue to check back in on the young players and the call-ups. So, let's keep each other apprised of that information. And if anyone sees anything that we're missing that you want us to talk about, definitely either comment on the YouTube video or go to sportscardstrategy.com and join the Facebook group, because we want to continue the discussion there. We got only about 200 people, so we're going to answer. You're going to get answers, and you're not going to get you're not going to get bombarded with a bunch of ridiculous stuff that you might get in other Facebook groups where there's like 30,000 people. So definitely we want you in there. We'd love to have you. Or comment on the YouTube video and we reply right away. So Graphs and Charts brought to you by Sports Card Investor Market Movers app. You can use the promo code No Offseason to get your first month for only $1. And another topic I want to talk about as I bring up another graph and chart situation here is Kylian Mbappe, who decided to sort of shock the world and
broke my heart, man.
Remain at PSG for another 3 years, I believe. Talk about that, just I guess from a breaking your heart perspective, because I know you're a Real Madrid fan, and then we can get into the card side of things and the impact there.
So yeah, I did want him to go be a Madrista. I think it was important for La Liga for him to come to Real Madrid. I think they need something like that. Now there are hints of Messi potentially going back to Barca, and there are actually hints of Ronaldo coming back to Real. It's not going to be the same as it was, even if they do come back. But it seems like, in 2011, 2012, La Liga had the best players. Like if you like back then, if you talked about soccer, you talked about English having the best league, Spanish having the best players, and Germany having the best fans. And then France had the most money. That's kind of how it was, and like, because PSG is kind of all alone in their league, which is what I don't like about Mbappe being at PSG. I think he would be exponentially better if he was to go to a different club, because I think he doesn't get tested as much being in the French league as he would be somewhere else. So at 23 years old, he's actually a fraction of what Messi and Ronaldo were at 23 years old. Like if you look at their statistics, it's not even close. And so, I want him to be kind of put on a bigger stage per se. Like the French league is just like, honestly, just nobody watches it. People watch PSG when they are watching the Champions League, and the PSG is obviously huge. They've got Neymar, Messi, Mbappe. Like they've got an incredible team. Nobody's doubting that. But when you're looking at views, when you're looking at market share, when you're looking at card value, Mbappe's the guy. If he would have gone somewhere else, I think, one, it would have tested him a lot more in his career. Two, I think he would have actually been able to win a Ballon d'Or if he was on a different team, such as Real Madrid's, or if he was to go to England, like somewhere like Man City or something like that. These teams will have to shell out to afford him. And the one thing that I could say about this is that it's only for 3 more years. The guy will be 26 at the end of his PSG contract.
Yeah.
Please, God, Kylian, leave PSG for your legacy, because I don't think his legacy does much different. Like if France wins another World Cup, it'll be like, cool, he's already done that. If he wins another French title, it's like, cool, he's already done that. Like, I think he needs to leave for his legacy's sake. I think his cards, like, he might have an initial hype because he is back in the media, but like if he would have gone to Real Madrid or something like that, his cards would have skyrocketed, I think.
Yeah.
So it broke my heart from the fact of like he chose the easy route. He's French. Maybe wants to stay in Paris. Like that's great, cool, but like, for me, as a collector and as a fan, I wanted to see him take on a new challenge. I wanted him to like just shock the world and maybe make a move to, I think even going to Germany would have been a better move for him.
Wow.
So
Germany.
I don't know.
Maybe you're right. I think they probably is more competitive than the French league, but yeah. So good stuff. On the soccer card front with Mbappe, my job at nooffseason.com is obviously to monitor what happens with players and then what impact that has on their card value, and then make projections off of that. And so my initial sort of analysis, after synthesizing the data, if you will, and the news, is that no one has sold any of his cards since the news. Like none of his cards have sold, which basically means that they're not up or down. They're people are holding. And I think that that's probably the right move right now. I'm holding. I'm not listing any. My plan wasn't to list any of my Mbappe cards until the World Cup anyway, 2022 World Cup.
I think that's what most people are doing, yeah.
So that's probably what most people are doing. So, but without this bump in value of a news of a transfer to Real Madrid, is this a buying window on Mbappe? Like, is there? I just want to make sure we're not missing talking about something else with him. How do you see the trajectory of his cards? I know I'm disappointed that he's not in La Liga either. I think that this probably would have been a marker that would have improved his card value long-term, improved his legacy long-term. But because he still is who he is, and he still will only be 26, 27 years old after this next contract wears out, does this mean that it potentially is an opportunity to go buy more, double down on someone like Mbappe?
I wouldn't. And here's why. I don't think that France is okay. So you're basically looking at his next window being the World Cup. France is a really good team, but I think the star of the French World Cup this year is not going to be Mbappe. It's going to be Benzema. And so he might get residual outcome from that, but you have a lot more capabilities. Like Mbappe is going to be a big focus. And so similar to like a couple of World Cups ago, Neymar was the big focus, and then he goes out and lays an egg. And I'm sure I wasn't investing at that point, but I'm sure his cards plummeted in terms of value. And I think there's a lot more like there's a very high risk play into buying Mbappe right now because like you already got a lot of your price baked in. He doesn't have a lot of more room to run exponentially up. Now, if he's just like average, if he's just like scores a couple goals and has some assists, then he's probably just going to be fine. And you're not going to get an opportunity to sell high. You're probably going to get an opportunity to sell exactly what you bought it for, which I don't like that. If you're going to spend that kind of money, buy a different player, buy a Gavi, buy a Pedri, buy a guy that's like up and buy a Musa, or buy a guy like something like that, where a guy that's going to use the World Cup to become a national icon. I mean, I wouldn't buy a guy that's at the peak of his mark. I don't know. And that also is because like I like watching Mbappe, but I don't believe he's as good as people think he is.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned something you alluded to something that I think a lot of people made money on sports card investing over the last several years, and that would be to take, say, $2,000 that you would spend on an Mbappe and maybe break even, or take that $2,000 and buy 20 different Yunus Musa sort of mini banger cards and hold the 20 until he has that moment where they all go from $100 to $300, and now all of a sudden you've made what, like, do the quick math on that, $1,800. I don't know, maybe more. So I think a lot of people.
For instance, can I also bring up a transition point here?
Absolutely.
If you're going to spend $2,000, spend $2,000 on somebody who's going to have exponential potential return. Speaking of a guy who could potentially have exponential return, the U.S. might have just found their striker when Malik Tillman goes from Germany, decommits from Germany, goes to the U.S., immediately the day after gets called into national team camp. He is he's on a massive club. He's leaving a nation that he was going to play for. So he was going to be in the German national team. Maybe not this year, but he's going to be. He's pretty young. And he's already in the U.S. men's national team. They need a goal scorer. And if you're going to spend $2,000, I got a Malik Tillman Merlin auto for $50 last week. I think it's already selling for like $80. Spend $2,000 on a really nice or maybe a lot of Malik Tillman cards and have the exponential ability to have everybody and their mom wanting a Malik Tillman card when he's scoring like 2 or 3 goals in the opening round of the World Cup, and then go buy like a legacy card to vault with, like use this as an opportunity to grow your position somewhere so that when you do put it into a GOAT, you can have more of a position in a GOAT, right? So like use the opportunity for a media hype in some of the smaller medium plays and then vault that into a GOAT type player, which is kind of what we talked about earlier with like, I'm using all these cards over here to like build a bag up to eventually put it into a vault. I think that's the same thing. If you have $2,000 to spend, buy some World Cup cards and on some of those lower guys, Tillman's one of them, Gavi's one of them, Pedri's one of them, Musa's one of them. I think Tim Weah could potentially have an opportunity because his prices are really cheap. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there that you could potentially do that with. Other countries, I mean, Jude Bellingham, he's going to be incredible, so it's like there's some English guys out there that I would consider investing in. There's some Brazilian guys. I mean, look at Junior.
Vinny Junior?
Yeah, Vinicius. Yeah, you could have Vinny Junior out there too. I mean, his cards are a little been now. That like a couple months ago, you could have bought Vinny for really, really cheap.
Yeah.
But I just think there's opportunity for those kind of guys. So.
Yeah. So I love this. I love this intel. So on Malik Tillman, at what point do you sort of cannibalize yourself as a U.S. men's national team investor? Like, if you're in, do you have to pick one or the other, or do you can you invest in Tillman and Musa and Pulisic and Gio Reyna and all the other guys? Like, or do you need to be? And the answer may be yes, just because there's like 2 World Cups as markers, and these guys have their own individual professional careers that have trajectories for them to improve and that sort of thing, and they're so young. But do you need to kind of pick, or are you cannibalizing yourself if you're buying too many different U.S. men's national team players?
I think yes and no. And here's why I say that. Yes, because it just makes sense. You can't invest in everybody. Like some of those guys are not going to make it, but that's also part of investing. You kind of hedge your bet a little bit by investing. Like for instance, if you can take $2,000 into Mbappe, or you can spread $2,000 between 5 players in the U.S. men's national team, and they're all younger than Mbappe, so it's like there's a chance that potentially all of them could rip. Plus, I think you've got the opportunity because I talked about this on one of my soccer episodes, but the U.S. market share is very large in terms of buying. Like if you look at who is holding soccer cards, there's a large portion of them that are Americans. And when you look at Americans, what do they want to buy? They want to buy the guys that are on their TV and in their media and in their commercials and in their, you in their jersey. And I think you have an opportunity. I mean, if you even look at World Cup ticket price purchases, usually it's like the host nation is the first like demographic that buys the most tickets. And so they're projecting even like this Qatar World Cup for the U.S. Nation to have the second most tickets purchased for games attended, and like that's a little bit crazy.
That's very surprising. That's very surprising. That's cool, man. There's some Malik Tillman potential bangers on eBay right now that I might need to check out. But
I think the opportunity of him playing at Bayern too is a big deal.
Okay. Very cool. Love it. Well, we'll be constantly updating our sports card investment report with all this information and more. We do every day now at nooffseason.com, and you can save 20% on this amazing product. I'd say it's entertainment value as much as it is investment suggestions, or strong investment related content. So we want to help you make money on sports cards, and we want to keep you entertained. And so nooffseason.com, save 20% on the sports card investment report by using the promo code NOOFFSEASON. And then, of course, the graphs and charts that we use come from Market Movers app. So if you're just more of a data person and you want to do your own analysis, check out marketmoversapp.com. Use the promo code NOOFFSEASON there to get your first month for only $1. And we thank you, as always, for watching and listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show. We try to bring it strong for you every week with the catalytic Kendall Lefty McKee and myself, Paul Hickey from nooffseason.com. Kendall, anything else you want to add before we sign off for this episode?
I would say hedge your bet with Malik. I'm not saying go all in. I'm just bringing up him as another name that could potentially play. I'm not even sure if he ends up being a starter on this team. I'm just saying that was in my reference to like, look at Kylian Mbappe and what you would spend there, and you could spread it out a lot more easily. Yeah.
I mean, I think it's fair to say that if you're familiar with the Sports Card Strategy Show, that Malik Tillman is this episode's Caden Clark for you.
Oh, he's an absolute flyer for sure.
And if you're not familiar with the Sports Card Strategy Show, I did spend about $500 on Caden Clark cards a couple months ago. Then he proceeded to get injured, although his dad did tweet at me and say that he's better than Gio Reyna and that he's better than Paxton Aronson. So look out for my boy, my man, rather, because he is, I think, 18 years old now, so we can call him a man. Caden Clark out of Minnesota. But
he is on transfermarket.us, or the database for transfer values and stuff like that. He's twice as valuable as Malik.
Don't sleep on Caden Clark. I mean, it's still it's bye until 2026 for that guy. He's my longest term hold out of anything that I own, unless he makes some weird debut in the 2022 World Cup and does something amazing, and then I just sell my big ones. But I think he's a 2026 guy, or he just completely falls off the map 100%, and we never hear from him again. Which I think what Kendall's trying to say is that could happen to Malik Tillman. We'll see. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching and listening. You have a great day. Hit me up in the comments and or join the Facebook group at sportscardstrategy.com. Quick link at sportscardstrategy.com. Later.